$4,237,000. That's the number on the screen at 6:14 a.m. on a Wednesday in March. You are 35 years old. You sold the company 8 weeks ago. The wire cleared in 3 tranches. The last one landed yesterday afternoon, while you were buying oat milk at a store you had never been inside before, because you no longer needed to be on the call you used to be on at 4 p.m. on Tuesdays. You stood in the dairy aisle for a long time. You weren't deciding anything, you were just standing there. You make coffee. The apartment is quiet. The apartment has been quiet for 8 weeks. You used to think you wanted this. You said it out loud to people. You said it in interviews. You said it on a podcast where the host had a $14,000 microphone and asked you what freedom meant to you. And you said something about time, and the clip got 312,000 views, and people quoted it back to you in DMs you no longer answer. The coffee is good. You bought the beans from a roaster that ships every other Friday. The grinder cost $640. You have nowhere to be. The first rule: the exit removes the structure before it removes the work. You discover this the way you discover a tooth is cracked. Slowly, then all at once. For 11 years, you woke up to a calendar that was built by other people. Investor updates on Mondays, engineering sync at 10:15. The 2 p.m. you didn't want to take. The dinner in Palo Alto you flew down for. The texts from Devanch at 11:47 p.m. that said one word: thoughts. And you knew exactly what he meant. The structure was the scaffolding. The structure was the thing you complained about. The structure was the thing that held the entire shape of your life upright. You did not know this when you signed the term sheet. You know it now. You open the brokerage app. You close it. You open it again. The number hasn't changed. The number isn't going to change. That's the thing about a 4% safe withdrawal rate on $4.2 million. It produces $168,000 a year in perpetuity. That is more than you made in your second year of running the company. It is also, somehow, not the answer to any question you currently have. You go to the gym at 9:30 a.m. The gym at 9:30 a.m. is a different country. The retirees on the recumbent bikes. The man with the towel over his shoulder who hasn't moved from the same machine in 40 minutes. The woman doing kettlebell swings with a personal trainer who calls her by her first name. You see yourself in the mirror between sets. You are not who you were 12 weeks ago. Not physically. You look fine. You look better than fine. Something about the eyes. The eyes are tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You finish the workout. You drive home. The drive home takes 14 minutes. You used to take this drive at 8:47 p.m. and feel like you'd earned it. You take it at 11:02 a.m. and feel nothing. You text your closest friend from the company. Her name is Imani. She is now a VP at the acquirer. She texts back at 2:30 p.m. She's in a meeting. She'll call later. She doesn't call later. You don't blame her. You used to be the one who didn't call later. You used to send the apology text at midnight that said, "Buried, talk tomorrow." And tomorrow would mean Friday. And Friday would mean 3 weeks from Friday. And 3 weeks from Friday would mean never. You understand the architecture of that silence from both sides now. It does not make it less quiet. The shift happens in week 10. You're at a dinner party. Your old neighbor invited you. 6 people at a long table in a Brooklyn apartment with exposed brick and 3 different lamps from the same designer. Someone asks what you do. You have not yet developed a sentence for this. You say, "I just sold a company." The table reacts. 2 of them know what that means. 4 of them ask what the company did. You explain. They nod. They are impressed in the abstract. Then one of them, a woman who runs a nonprofit and is wearing a sweater that costs more than her car, asks the second question. So, what are you doing now? You open your mouth. There is a pause of about 3 seconds. 3 seconds is a long time at a dinner table. You say, "Figuring it out." She smiles politely. The conversation moves on. You finish your wine. You realize that for the first time in your adult life, you do not have a satisfying answer to the second question. The second question is the real question. The first question was the warm-up. The second rule: identity built on output collapses when output stops. You did not understand how much of yourself was load-bearing on the company until the company was gone. You were the person who built the thing. Now, the thing is owned by someone else and being integrated into a roadmap you no longer have access to. The Slack workspace was deactivated 41 days ago. You still reach for the icon on your phone. It isn't there. You put a calendar app in its place. The calendar is empty. The calendar will be empty tomorrow. The calendar will be empty next Tuesday. You start trying things. You sign up for a pottery class. It costs $480 for 8 sessions. You go to 3 of them. You make a bowl that is uneven on one side. The instructor is kind. You stop going. You tell yourself you'll go back. You don't go back. You sign up for a Spanish tutor on a Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. You attend twice. The tutor is patient. The verbs do not stick. You realize the problem is not the verbs. The problem is that nothing is at stake. You used to learn things in 72 hours because the company would die if you didn't. You cannot replicate that pressure with a 4 p.m. Spanish lesson and an empty calendar at 5. You buy a Peloton. You ride it 22 times in the first month and 4 times in the second. The bike costs $2,495. It now functions as a coat rack. You do not feel guilty about this in the way you would have at 26. You feel something more accurate. You feel the cost of trying to spend your way out of a structural problem. You meet a wealth advisor. Her name is Renata Corey. She is in her early 50s. She has been doing this for 22 years. She does not try to sell you anything. She asks you one question for the first 40 minutes of the meeting. She asks you what your life looks like in 5 years. You begin to answer 3 times. Each time you stop. The 4th time you tell her you don't know. She writes nothing down. She nods. She says, "Most of my clients in your situation can't answer that question for about 18 months." You ask her what the ones who figure it out have in common. She thinks for a moment. She says, "They stop trying to retire." You are not, it turns out, retired. You are unemployed with capital. These are not the same condition. Retirement is a system designed for people who have spent 40 years inside a structure they did not build. It assumes the absence of work is the reward. You are 35. You built the structure. The absence of it is not a reward. It is a vacuum. Vacuums do not stay empty. You start noticing the people around you, the ones who exited before you. There is a small fraternity of them in the city. They have a signal group. You are added to it in week 14. There are 31 people in the group. Some of them sold companies for $14 million. Some of them for $290 million. The conversations are remarkable. They do not talk about money. They almost never talk about money. They talk about what they're working on now. Every single one of them is working on something. Almost none of them need to. One of them is restoring a 1962 sailboat in a marina in Sausalito. One of them is writing a book about the history of monetary policy in 19th century Argentina. One of them has started 3 companies in 4 years and shut 2 of them down before the seed round. One of them is just managing his own portfolio and reading 90 books a year. They are not retired. They are recalibrated. The distinction is everything. The third rule: capital is the easy part. Direction is the hard part. The math of having $4.2 million is solved before you wake up in the morning. The math of what to do with the next 50 years of your life is unsolved at 6:14 a.m. and will be unsolved at 11 p.m. and will keep being unsolved until you accept that nobody is going to solve it for you. Your therapist tells you this in different words. She charges $310 a session. You see her twice a week for a stretch. She says the problem is not depression. The problem is that you have lost the loudest voice in the room. And the loudest voice in the room was always the company. And now you have to learn to hear quieter voices. You write that down. You almost roll your eyes. Then you don't roll your eyes. Then you write it down again. You take a trip. You go to Lisbon for 3 weeks. You stay in an apartment in Príncipe Real that costs $94 a night because the dollar is strong and the off-season is generous. You walk for hours every day. You eat alone at restaurants where you don't speak the language. You read 3 novels and a biography of Henry George. You return on a Sunday. The apartment in New York is exactly as you left it. The dust has not moved. The dust is somehow worse than the silence. The dust is proof that nothing here changes when you are not here. And you spent 11 years believing the opposite was the entire point of building the company. The 4th rule. The hardest thing about leaving the machine is realizing the machine was loving you in a way you cannot replace. Not kindly, not gently, but entirely. The machine needed you at 7 a.m. and at 1 a.m. and on Christmas Day in 2021 when the production database went down. The machine never asked if you were tired. The machine never wondered if you were okay. The machine was, in its brutal way, the most committed relationship of your adult life. The machine is gone. You miss it. You did not know you would miss it. You feel something like grief, but with no funeral and no permission to feel it, because the world believes you have won. You start something. It happens in week 19. You don't announce it. You don't tell the signal group. You don't tweet. You take a notebook and you write down 14 problems you have noticed in the last decade that nobody has solved well. You cross out 11 of them. You spend 2 weeks on the remaining 3. You pick one. It has to do with how small companies manage compliance documentation. It is not glamorous. It is the kind of problem you would have ignored at 28 because it was too boring. You are 35 now. Boring is no longer an insult. Boring is a signal that nobody has bothered to look closely. You open a fresh document. You title it. You start writing. You hire one engineer. You pay him out of pocket, $14,800 a month. You don't take outside money. You don't need to. You don't want the calendar to refill in the old shape. You want a different shape. You build for 4 hours a day. You stop at 2 p.m. You go for a walk. You read in the afternoon. You see your therapist on Tuesday. You see Imani for dinner on Thursday now because you no longer cancel, and so neither does she. The new thing makes $0 in month 1, $0 in month 2, $2,400 in month 3. The $2,400 is not the point. You don't need the $2,400. The point is that there is a number again, and the number is moving, and the movement is yours. You stop describing yourself as retired. You stop describing yourself at all. You answer the second question now, when it comes at dinner parties, by describing what you are working on. People nod. The answer is small. The answer is not impressive in the way the exit was impressive. The answer is yours. That is the difference. The exit was a thing that happened to you. The new thing is a thing you are doing, deliberately, slowly, with capital that no longer needs to be deployed for survival and time that no longer needs to be defended from anyone. The 5th rule. Wealth at this scale is not the end of work. It is the privilege of choosing which work is worth doing. You can choose poorly. You can choose nothing. You can let the $4.2 million sit and compound and watch the years pass and arrive at 50 with $7.8 million and the same vacuum you had at 35, only deeper, only quieter, only harder to climb out of because you have spent 15 more years not building the muscles that climbing requires. The capital does not save you from this. The capital makes it easier to drift, not harder. Drift is the actual risk. The actual risk was never the money running out. The actual risk is you running out, while the money keeps going without you. You are 36 now. The new thing has 14 customers. It makes $11,200 a month. You will probably never sell it. You will probably run it for a long time. You wake up at 7:14 a.m. on a Wednesday. The number in the brokerage account is $4,394,000. The number does not matter the way it once did. You make coffee. You sit at the desk. You open the document. You start writing. Somewhere, in another apartment in another city, a 34-year-old is staring at a wire confirmation. The number on the screen is $6,841,000. He thinks the work is finally over. He thinks the hard part is behind him. He doesn't know yet what the hard part actually is. He doesn't know what 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday will feel like in 7 weeks. He doesn't know that the machine is not the company. The machine is the part of you that needs the company. And the machine doesn't stop when the wire clears. It keeps going. It always keeps going. It just goes looking for something else to run.